Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have with me here, I'm going to let them go around and actually introduce themselves, the PM team, and then our community manager, AT, has also joined us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to have an echo. I have with me here, I'm going to let them go around and actually introduce themselves. There we go. Fix that real quick. Okay, awesome. Go ahead, guys. Take a second. Introduce yourselves.
Anjali, please.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Anjali Chaudhary, and I'm a PM on the Flo team. Like some of us in this room, I was one of the first people on the team about 2 years ago, and it's been a fun ride. Really looking forward to chatting with you all today.
Hi, my name is Sinai. I'm also a PM on the team. Have been with Flo since the very beginning. And yeah, looking forward to this Google Hangout.
Hi, I'm Steven Siciliano. I'm the GPM for Microsoft Flow, so I'm basically the guy in charge in terms of product vision, all that jazz. So I've been working on it since the very beginning as well, and excited to hang out.
Hi, everyone. Ingta Cheng here. I'm the Flow Community Manager, and really excited to hang out with you all today. Happy to address and talk more about any programs or questions that you have about the community.
And you guys all know me. I'm John Levesque. I am here focused on community, which is you guys. And so that's why I brought this together today. So I actually reached out to some of our community members to say, how should we begin this conversation? And I got some interesting questions from you guys. And so I'm going to throw some questions out there that the community wants to know about us. And whoever wants to jump in, just go ahead and jump in. So here's an interesting one. Have you ever worked with other workflow tools before working with Flow?
I can take this one. Yes, I have. I have worked with IFTTT, which is now known as IFT. I've also worked with a couple of other tools, which I probably cannot say, but Zapier was another one that I have used before working on the Flow team.
We've all used Logic Apps.
Yep, absolutely.
And Logic Apps, yes.
Yep. Cool. And guys out there, I'm going to just seat us with some questions, but any questions that you want to ask the team, feel free to go ahead and throw in the chat, and we'll get those queued up. So next question is, if you could work on any other product at Microsoft, what would it be? Hey, Marwan, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody real quick, too?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Marwan. I'm a PM on the Flow team. I drive integrations for the team into things like SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, Teams. I also drive approval scenarios for Flow.
Awesome. So how about you, Marwan? If you could work on any other product at Microsoft, what would it be?
I wouldn't. I'd be right here. I love
All right, who will actually answer that question since Marwan sidestepped it?
This is a really awkward question to answer in front of your boss. Like, let's just say that.
Let's make Steven answer it then.
Yeah, fine.
All right, Steven.
So I would say I would definitely want to work on. Well, no, that's cheating because that's basically the same team anyway. So besides Logic Apps, obviously, I would say somewhere in Office. Maybe like the Office web apps, like they're doing a lot of exciting things in terms of bringing a lot of rich capabilities into the web, and they have, this nice streamlined interface that they're rolling out. So, and all of the co-auth stuff is really interesting. So I think kind of the collaboration capabilities that Office Online has is really exciting. So
yeah, I can take a stab at that one. If they would let me, I would go work in Microsoft Research, because that's always fun. I mean, the quantum computing stuff is pretty cool. I have absolutely no idea about how that works. But hey, if I were to be able to, pick without interviewing, then yeah, that would be the team that I would go to.
Nice. Okay. I have some more questions, guys. I'm waiting on you guys to ask us questions. Feed them to us. Let us know. Okay, here's an interesting one. What is your least favorite thing to work on in Flow?
Least
favorite thing to work on in Flow.
What did you say?
Driving bugs down to 0.
Hey, Kent, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, my name is Kent Weir. I'm a PM on the team. I'm focused on enterprise readiness, so things like security, governance, analytics.
Awesome. And we're asking questions. We're throwing questions out. I kind of preceded some, asked a little earlier. And the current one is, what is your least favorite thing to work on in Flow? And so the format is anyone can jump in and speak to that.
I'm not sure I can answer that. Let's see.
GDPR stuff, documentation, reading all of that. I think it's pretty difficult.
Documentation is definitely a tough one. GDPR, I could imagine, would be.
So GDPR has been an interesting journey. So it's I'll leave it at that.
Okay, awesome. All right, so then let's switch that and ask, what is your favorite moment on the Flow team? Of all the time you've been on the Flow team, what was your favorite moment so far?
I know for me, I think I've really enjoyed working on approvals because, talking to customers, understanding what their requirements were, like for, because we're like the successor to SharePoint, there were a lot of SharePoint customers that wanted it. So like being able to talk to them and like a year later now being able to say like, oh, those scenarios that you talked to me about like a long time ago, we can now do them in Flow. And actually like seeing them comment that on the forum, that kind of thing, I think that gives me a lot of joy to like, it feels like a sense of accomplishment when I see people using approvals and they're successful in their scenarios.
Totally. That's a good one.
I would just say when we went GA.
Yeah.
On October 31st, 2016, the day that will always live in infamy. Yeah, I mean, that was great. And, the amount of usage we saw right after GA, I think was pretty impressive. We had a ton of users using it and obviously still using it today. So yeah, that was a great.
It'll be Steven's tattoo on October 31st.
Tattoo, we should step it up. Let's do a brand.
I think for me, I think so there's a lot of things in general whenever customers tweet or show like a lot of interest in the features that we as a product team build. I think everyone gets a lot of joy out of that. For me, the custom connectors has been one of those stories which has been kind of, when we started doing the feature, it was a very obscure, deep, hidden feature. And then as time went on, we invested more and more in that feature. But over time, when we saw people actually using it, reaching out to us, saying, hey, I have this scenario and I want to enable it in Flow. How do I do it? Like that to me was the moment where I was like, oh my God, the thing that I've built and crafted with my own hands is actually useful for other people. And I think that was one of the happiest moments.
I'm seeing a common theme here. It's like Marwan, like I birthed approvals.
Yeah.
I birthed custom connectors. Steven's like, I birthed the product. Yeah.
But yeah, I think,
Yeah, we do. We have 3 actually. So starting with, or 4 now, Matt, Hunter, Adriana.
Okay, Matt. So I'm curious about 2 things. Matt Wade asked us, he's curious about 2 things. 1, how do third-party connectors get built? Do we build them or do the app devs submit them? And 2, what is the behind-the-scenes process of reviewing templates? So, Sune?
Yeah, I think I can answer all of those questions. So for third-party connectors, there are 2 paths. The first path is if you own the service yourself, then you can go build a connector for it. There is a specific contract that you have to sign with Microsoft for connectors. So for example, like you can't just build a connector and then you can go build a connector.
Sorry.
That's fine. But you have to build the connector and then maintain it and so on and so forth. So there are some contracts that are put in place. And then if you're not the service owner, there's very little sort of motivation for you to build it and maintain it and so on and so forth. So that's one piece. Some of the third-party connectors have been built internally by Microsoft itself to seed and sort of bootstrap the product. So that answers question number 1. I think what are the other 2 questions?
So that you kind of answered the first part. The second part is, what is the behind-the-scenes process of reviewing templates?
So templates today are reviewed internally by a dedicated team of people that are actively looking at template submissions. We have certain metrics and certain sort of key values or sort of properties on the templates that we prioritize evaluating these templates by. For example, Is it useful? Is it a duplicate of a scenario or of a template that's already in production, and so on and so forth? But that process is going to improve over time, and our hope / our goal actually is to remove the manual process of having people review these templates. In the future, if you submit a template and if it just goes through our automation and checks, then it'll just go live.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like this question, so I'm going to jump ahead to this one and come back to some others. One of the Marvel superheroes is using Flow. Who is it?
Oh my God.
I mean,
I think Iron Man.
Yeah, I'd say Tony
Yeah.
Stark. Yeah.
Tony Stark.
I like that. Yes, that's a great question, Ahmad.
Wait, what technology,
movie is this
right?
in? Is this in a movie?
No.
They're just like hypothetically.
Hypothetically, Sune's all excited. What Marvel movie is Flow in?
Did this come out in the latest Avengers movie? What?
We do have some pretty cool customers.
Yeah.
It's true. Okay, let's see here. What do you feel is the most common connector that you get requests around?
Office 365 Outlook.
Has the top set of requests because people do a lot.
Email on the flow. Working with email is, by far, I think, one of the most common things. Second probably is SharePoint. There's a lot of things in terms of the SharePoint connector that we need to go and work on.
Awesome. Let's see here. I would like to know more about how Flow integrates with Power BI. I'm comfortable with Power BI, but never really explored Flow. Are there any licensing costs around Flow? So I can talk to this one. So Flow and Power BI, there's two main ways that I have used it. The first one being you can create a streaming data set out of anything with Flow. So you set your streaming data set in Power BI, and then you just move the dynamic content from Flow into that. And then the other main way is flowing off of alerts in Power BI. And so you can set certain thresholds to create alerts and then do workflow based on those alerts happening. Licensing, there is a license model for Flow, but if you go to our licensing page, it's probably a lot more clear than what I could give you here in this Hangout. So I would say check that out.
Flow.microsoft.com/pricing is the URL.
What are you working on to improve Flow error messages? Anjali.
Oh, you
No,
want me
no,
to take
it's
this?
Sune.
Yeah.
So yes, we are working on building features, and some of you may have already noticed that we very recently released a new feature called test flows, and in the same vein, we are going to be improving the error messages that you see bubbling up from what we call the debug view or the monitoring view in Flow. So today we know that we expose the raw REST or HTTP error messages to you, but over time what we are going to do is we are going to make it easier to read these error messages. We are going to take out the developer context and make it very simple for you. So for example, if you know what a 400 bad request is, what it usually means is that the request or the operation or the action that was executed as part of the flow had some invalid parameters or some invalid inputs to it. So instead of saying 400 bad requests, we are going to tell you your operation did not execute properly because you potentially have some bad inputs. So that is the kind of work that we are going to do in the short term. Over the long term, we have plans to actually understand what errors are happening because, and then very easily give you some very simple repair steps that you can take to fix these errors. So those are the kind of two things that are on our short and medium term roadmap. Longer term, our hope is that you never see these errors in the first place.
Awesome. Thanks, Sune.
Yep.
Also, this one probably to Sune as well. Can you guys make a flow of the week? How to create a new connector for dummies?
Yes, we can. And yeah, over the next week, I will probably blog something about that.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. I want to answer this one. What's the most impressive flow someone built according to you guys? And so I talk about this flow often. Steven actually built it, of course. And basically, tell me if I have this correct, but what it does is it goes out and it calls the Lithium API, our community API, and it gathers up all the ideas that you guys have submitted with their counts and their status on if we said they're planned or new or something like that. What it does is it grabs all that information and then it dynamically generates a web page to show the different statuses and timelines of those ideas based upon some thresholds that Stephen created. And so when you zoom all the way out, like to like 10%, I think the flow is probably still about 4 pages long. It is absolutely by far the most impressive flow I've ever seen. And here's my challenge to you guys. I would love to see one more impressive. And if you guys have one, please get in touch with me and show it to me so that we can try and make Stephen build an even bigger flow.
Pressure's on.
Yeah. I think I've also seen a few customers actually build some pretty intense flows that do a lot. I think Paul is on one of our he's one of our MVPs, and he's built pretty significant complex flows, and he's got some training material on it. So
Paul Comsey? Yeah. So that's another really epic one I would say that we should call out. Paul Comsey built the Floxy, which is the flow proxy, which allowed you to get images into Power Apps previously before we built that functionality in natively. And a lot of people used that pattern to do that. So definitely a big shout out to Paul for creating that one as well.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing I would add is maybe it's not too complicated, but in early days, our entire template publishing mechanism was powered by Flow. So we eat our own dog food if you were thinking about that.
Nice. Okay, let's see here. Any improvement of the expression builder on the horizon? So we have already begun making improvements there. You'll see our expression tree builder coming fairly soon, right, guys?
Yep.
And then any additional plans to help iterate in expressions?
Not in the short term. I mean, we're always looking at ways to improve and kind of enhance the product. I think the expression builder itself, like you said, we're having the tree view coming for conditions. But beyond that, I don't think there's anything specific in the short term.
All right. How can I convince my IT director that Flow or Logic Apps are tools that can be used, even for large business enterprise implementations of Dynamics products?
Ooh. So I think I'll take this one.
Go for it.
So I think the reality is that people are using these; they are enterprise ready. And I think what I would focus on is value. And even prior to joining Microsoft, what we would always do is have the idea of a bake-off. And what's really interesting around Flow and Logic Apps is these are tools that you can build something that provides value very quickly. So if you want to talk to an IT director that's generally interested in value, supportability, and money, and so certainly you can demonstrate value very quickly and then still show the capabilities of these tools because they have improved and grown so quickly that they are at the point where you can use them to depend on your day-to-day business processes.
Yeah. One other thing that I would add to that is since Flow is part of Office 365 and Dynamics 365, you probably don't have to pay extra, which you probably are doing today if you're using some other third-party workflow automation products.
Yeah.
So yeah, the cost-benefit analysis is always something that a IT director is looking for, and that is a strong point that you can make.
Yeah, I'd like to add one minor point to this. I mean, when we talk to different IT departments and stuff, they always have like this long list of backlog of things that are waiting on their developers, weeks old, months old, many times. And this is really like our intent with the product is really to democratize that effort outside of these, very special skilled workers in the IT department. So someone who's super interested in a marketing department can also at least give it a whirl as a proof of concept, if nothing else, and enhance it as needed. So if somebody builds a flow that is getting the part of the work done with approvals and such, and now they need to make some changes to a line of business application, then the IT department has to do a really small thing by building a custom connector around it, which I will blog about, and right, and that's it. And this person is still able to move that process forward without, getting more stuff on the backlog of the IT departments. So that to me is really like the key things with this, to be able to do it super quickly, build proof of concepts in like no cliffs. If there's more stuff needed, you can hand it off to the IT department at that point as a form of a logic app or something more complex, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, and then to speak more directly to you who asked the question, I think, your best bet if you want to go talk to IT is do what Kent said, like bring value, right? Build a solution using Power Apps and Flow, whatever that might be, and then take it and show it off and say, hey guys, look what I built. Here's the time it took me. Here's the processes it can replace and empower. And then, once you demonstrate it, they'll probably be a lot more likely to help you with that. Next question. When Flo creates an Outlook event, can I change the organizer of the event? When Flo sends an email, can I change where the email comes from?
So for the answer is yes. So if in Outlook you are marked as a delegated sender for a given email address, so imagine that the VP has a assistant that sends email on her behalf. The email can come from the VP, even though the assistant is the one who sent it. So you can do that. I don't believe we have that capability for calendar events, though. I think it's specific for email.
Cool.
And you can also send emails from a shared mailbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another option.
Yes, and you can create events on a shared calendar if you were the originator of the shared calendar.
Yep.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm hoping that you guys already know this, but if you want additional features, please add them and vote for them on our user voice.
And one thing I will add, though, is that you can also leverage something known as like SendGrid. You can use a SendGrid connector, and that is something that you could use if you're trying to do marketing emails, for instance. It's a great tool where you can actually define who the from is from. You can set your company name, for example.
Oh, yep. Awesome. Yeah. So check out the SendGrid connector for that question. That'd be a good option. Let's see. What is your favorite customer use case or one of the largest? So I have a favorite one. Oh wait, I can't talk about that one.
I think the case study that we did is probably one of
The
our
new one.
favorites.
The new one, yeah.
I was
So
gonna say.
the new one is nice. The visiting nurses health service. Yeah. So I mean,
talk about it.
I think that's a. You know what? Let's let Marwan talk about it. Yeah.
So the idea is that this is for a hospice service in New York. And the idea being that if something happens when, as a healthcare worker is working with somebody, if they notice an incident, they'll file that incident, and the incident is stored in SharePoint, and then it sends an approval request to the manager of that healthcare worker, asking them to approve that care was administered in the right way. And that's pretty simple, but where it starts to get complicated is if their manager doesn't reply within a certain time period, like let's say 2 days, then it automatically escalates to the director of the team. And if they don't respond in 3 days, then it keeps on pinging them. And so it keeps on like nagging them until they finally respond. And I thought like there's something that we'd shown at Ignite last year as well. And it's a cool use of Flow and helps, it's for a worthy cause.
Yeah, it really helps people, which is really cool for sure. I'm gonna skip a couple of these questions about functionality and jump into some more fun things here. Here's a good one. In line with the how do I convince my IT department to use Flow question, what is a flow that you think is likely to get users hooked?
A very simple template like send me a notification when I get an email from X person. I think there's so much value in that flow. From a personal productivity standpoint, we all know how overloaded our inboxes are. I've talked about this very simple flow with people who are new to the product and people who are exploring some more complex cases as well, and it resonates with just about everybody.
Yeah, internally, I think we use a lot of button flows. So, for example, like if you have a use case within your organization where you manually press a button, take some inputs, and perform some kind of automated operations, and you want to share that flow with your buddies and your colleagues, do that first, right? That's how you're showing them the value. Like, hey, I'm sharing this thing, one link with you or one button flow with you, and once you click it, you put some inputs in without even having to create a flow. They're using the product, right? So I think that is another hook for users to start using Flow without having to build a flow. And then obviously, I think the next or even the first step could be templates. But yeah, that's my answer.
I think there's another one along the same lines that Anjali mentioned, which I find really useful, is when I'm app mentioned. I send myself a push notification. It really helps me because I get a ton of email, and I oftentimes won't get to it like until late at night. But then if I get an app mention, I know like that's the one I should go and look at first.
Yeah. I've been talking templates as well when I've been on the road lately. One of the very useful ones that I find is just scraping all the attachments out of email and putting them in OneDrive. I hate searching my inbox for files. It never works. I don't know if it's because I get 1,000 emails a day or what, but just having them all in that OneDrive folder and just being able to access every attachment there is super helpful as well. But then I think to speak to a business case on a way to get people hooked, I would say approvals, because our approvals experience is simple and it's what we call lazy, right? It goes to many places. It's not just in your inbox. It's not just on your mobile. It's not just in the approval center. It's in all of them. So no matter what workspace you're in, you can approve. And so I'd say that turning your manual approval processes into flows is a great way to get your organization hooked as well.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We're coming down. We got time for one more question. Let's go back up here. Will we see any deeper AI integrations with Flow? Something like Lewis Plus for Flow?
I don't know about Lewis Plus per se. I think that we are talking, to the Lewis team and other AI teams inside Microsoft and how to, continue to enhance the connectors that we have to Lewis and to other, machine learning and cognitive services capabilities that we have inside Microsoft. So, definitely, anything that you can do through Lewis or, these other services, we want you to be able to do inside of Flow. I don't know if we're going beyond what we have inside of those other services, but at the very least, kind of getting to anything you can do with Lewis, you should be able to kind of leverage. That's something we want to do.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to shoot them to us on Twitter, through our emails, and also you can leave comments here on this, and I'll go back and make sure that every single one of them gets an answer. Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.